Welcome from the deep. I am Mike the Finder.
And I am Book of Brett.
And today we're going to be talking about the 1996 film Twister for
Yay!
reasons.
Twister.
Yes, this is a
Did
movie.
you watch this like when you were a kid?
I did, but I had not seen it in, I don't know, 25 years or whatever. Only a few years after it came out was when I watched it, and I only saw it once, maybe twice when I was a kid.
Was it also a jarring group of realizations for you upon watching it again last night?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is not what I remember it being. It's
it is
very
not.
slow. And considering, it's slow.
It's a bit longer than it needs to be.
Much longer than it needs to be, I would argue. This is one of those movies that I remember like being kind of a big deal when I was a kid for some reason. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know that that's the actual truth, but it's somehow, for some reason, what I remember. I also remember this being on like Stars and HBO and shit a lot.
I think it's because it was another like Michael Crichton, Steven Spielberg movie.
Who directed it?
Spielberg was a producer on it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I mean, it was definitely, a sort of a big movie in my childhood for some reason, even though I only saw it a handful of times.
Right.
But revisiting it was not something I had done in a very long time, even though I own the Blu-ray for some reason. I feel like
of course you do.
I feel like I picked this up at a Goodwill or something for like $3 forever ago and completely forgot about it.
You collect movies the way survivalists collect canned goods.
Okay, but
just in case.
It came in handy, did it not? We watched this together the other night, and it came in handy
because we ran out of ideas again, like survivalists.
Well, we were trying to find a place to stream this for you because I don't need to. I have a Blu-ray copy.
Right, and I've never once needed this added to my collection.
I get that, but we were trying to find a place for you to stream it, and what you had said was it was going to cost you like $8-9, right?
No. $15 because Amazon Prime was like, hey, remember this shitty movie from the 90s? You know, they're coming out with a sequel or a reboot or whatever. Yeah, let's jack up the price for no reason, which without getting on a tangent is just yet another notch in the fuck streaming services belt.
Yeah. And you wonder why I collect Blu-rays like they're fucking canned beans or something at the end of the world. This is why
stuff kind of like situation.
This. Yes, exactly. This is why I collect all these shitty Blu-rays, because at some point I'm going to be like, let's watch Twister.
Right. But this is why I need it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, but no, this is the reason we're always talking shit about streaming services. They know people want to rewatch the original Twister because Twisters is about to come out. And so they jack up the prices on purpose and remove it from any of the streaming services that it was on before and force you to pay a lot of money if you want to watch this movie before you walk into Twisters. So that's just kind of how the world we live in now. And so fuck it. Buy $3 Blu-rays at Goodwill. Actually, don't. Leave them all for me. Don't go do that. I revoke that statement. There's nothing at Goodwill. You should not even go look. Nope. So
notice to the world.
So we're going to be talking about Twister today. Do you want to go ahead and give us a synopsis of Twister from 1996? I almost said 2006.
Yes. A Twister is the story of Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, and a group of tornado chasers who go on a retribution mission for Helen Hunt's childhood trauma.
It is weird. I was telling you while we were watching this, I always in my head kind of get Twister and Contact mixed up. And after having watched this again, I kind of understand why. Yeah. Because at the beginning, she's in Twister in Contact too, right? That's not the other girl that looks like her.
No, that is Jodie Foster.
It is Jodie Foster. Okay.
Yeah.
I always get those two mixed up.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it is Jodie Foster.
They both have no lips.
Yes, they're
I like to imagine them like the legless guy from Kids just walking around the set singing, "I have no lips."
Wow, what an obscure reference. Okay, so if we jump over to the podcast drive-in over here, Twister from 1996. It's rated PG-13. God, is it ever? It is an hour and 53 minutes.
And she has the same confused look on her face in that screenshot that I had watching it.
The entire time we were watching this, I was thinking, this just keeps going. And going,
yeah.
Like when the fuck is it going to end? They chase the same fucking Twister 4 fucking times.
Right, to stop it. Because you can stop them.
Yeah, that is something that literally someone says, go stop it. And then it's got a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb. And the one sentence synopsis is 2 storm chasers on the brink of divorce must work together to create an advanced weather alert system by putting themselves in the crosshairs of extremely violent tornadoes.
I don't know, I'd say on the brink of divorce. More like a pen stroke away from divorce, because like the papers are filled.
Yeah, other than one signature. She definitely did that on purpose.
This whole movie comes to a screeching halt if he just gets the signature on the truck at the beginning.
It's like, okay,
whole movie
bye.
stops.
Yeah. That's a good point.
just fast forward to him at her memorial service because she couldn't stay the fuck away from tornadoes.
Well, she has childhood trauma, Brett, and that causes her to
she's
chase
got a
it.
Shitload. Yeah, no, this girl took daddy issues and injected them into the environment.
I mean, can you blame her, though? Because her father is literally, in the first 4 minutes of this movie, sucked up into the sky.
I can, actually, because this is a revenge movie. This, at its heart, is a revenge movie aimed at weather. This is someone at the Weather Channel went, I want to make a movie. What do I know? Well, I know weather. So here we go.
Well, this is directed by Jan de Bont. I don't know what else.
Are you saying that right?
I probably not. How would you say this?
Jan de Bont? Jan de Bont.
Yeah, I don't think that's right either.
I'm pretty sure.
He's one of 17 children. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. That poor woman. That poor woman. That's a dad who goes to the bar a lot.
Wow. And he also...
Somebody left for cigarettes at the age of 6.
Let's see what else he's directed. Okay, so he also directed Speed. That's pretty cool. I liked Speed. I haven't seen that in a long time either. Speed 2, Cruise Control. The Haunting from 1999. Wow. And then the Cradle of Life Tomb Raider movie. Interesting. And
wow. Okay, so he's got like some credits.
Yeah, but that's it. That's all he's ever done.
This is also back in the day when like you didn't make a movie of this magnitude without having the credits there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
I feel like it's a double-edged sword because that's kind of like the good thing about nowadays is like every now and then we do get good movies from directors that don't have a lot of credits where like the studios took a chance on them.
Well, it's easier to find people, I think, now just because of the internet and YouTube and Vimeo and however else like aspiring directors are getting found.
Right.
I also think there's something to be said about just how much easier it is to make a movie now and get it into festivals and seen by people that matter. But yeah, Speed, I don't know how he got Speed after only having directed a short before that in 1965. And then his first movie is 1994 and it's Speed. That's insane. But anyway,
somebody did a little tug.
This was written by Michael Crichton and Anne Marie Martin. It stars Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, and Cary Elwes.
Yes, it does.
The great Cary. I believe you called him a national treasure last night as we were watching.
International treasure.
International treasure.
He's an Cary Elwes, and there's no debating that.
I mean, he is in some fucking great movies. The one that I always think of course, is The Princess Bride, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Saw. Yep.
Yeah, no.
So
Cary Elwes
he's in some good
is an
shit.
international treasure, and he can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. He's also got a hell of a story with his wife. I don't know. I'm not going to go into it, but there is a like they ran away kind of thing. It was not sanctioned by the parents. There's Cary Elwes has a really cool backstory, and I'm pretty sure he's related to royalty, or maybe it was his parents. I think it was his parents. But yeah, Cary Elwes has a pretty cool story.
All right. Well, if you want to go first here, why don't you give me your initial thoughts on Twister, and then we will go into spoilers after I give you mine, and then we will give final ratings. I don't expect this to be one of our longer episodes, because this is sort of I don't want to say shallow, but
not a lot going on here as far as substance.
Deep movie, substanceless is a good baby term for it.
There's a good amount of character development in here.
Yeah.
But overall, Twister to me is a movie. Twister is under the guise of being made for young adults, but is only enjoyed at its maximum by 9-year-olds. And I say that because that's when I enjoyed it the most.
Same.
And upon rewatching it, there are holes. It's like corkboard. You poke a lot of holes in it, but you don't really see the holes. I think that's the best way of putting it. It's not as the CGI did not age well at all. As you said, you could make the satellite we see at the beginning in Blender in about 30 minutes now. Do you remember GAC?
I do.
GAC is the sound effect they used for the water tornadoes, I think. And they combined it with what I can only imagine is not the flushing of the toilet, but the sound inside the drain after flushing the toilet. Just a... In fact, I think that might be a pretty spot on impression of what these water tornadoes sound like. And then you have what I can only describe as monster sounds.
Oh my God.
For the tornadoes themselves. I feel like maybe this was made by people who grew up in New York, who've never heard a tornado before, because a tornado sounds like hell on earth. If you've ever heard one. Mike, you and I have actually heard them before. We were on the kind of outskirts of one.
Oh, yeah, no, we were right across the street from one when it ripped the roof off of a fucking school building. Yeah.
It sounds like the rush of God's hand coming to the earth.
Yes.
And none of them sound like that in this movie. So I'm not sure what was going on there as far as the special effects department goes or the sound department goes. But overall, this is a very, it's a very shallow blockbuster. It's not a movie you're coming into for a lot of feels, even though I think there was a lot of room for that. But the whole thing with Helen Hunt's character in this movie is that her dad was sucked away by a tornado pretty needlessly.
Sucked off.
He was sucked off by a tornado pretty needlessly, because I feel like upon watching it, they could have just not been so close to the cellar door. Maybe just don't be so close, because like once the door gets sucked off with her dad, they're still in there. Like they don't get sucked away.
It's very strange to me how the, 70-pound 7-year-old doesn't get sucked up into the sky, but her 200-pound father does, even though they're a foot away from each other. So there's definitely that, and her mom somehow like stops her from, being sucked up into the sky as well. So,
well, that's because of her mom's gravitational pull.
but no, I totally agree. The fact that the father gets sucked up into the sky and the daughter and mother do not it's very silly. But I understand the necessity of it being there just to give her some depth, because otherwise she's just this insane person that runs into tornadoes over and over again for seemingly no reason.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the thing, though, is I don't think every storm chaser on Earth had a parent killed by a tornado.
You don't know that.
And the expectation, she's got this level of hatred for tornadoes that does make you feel like she's on a war path to literally stop tornadoes.
Yeah, well, and I mean, part of it is the character that they've written into the script is very hard-headed and insane and sort of willing to die for this whole storm chaser thing, which is fine. Like I said when we were watching this, I think all of them have serotonin issues where they don't necessarily get all the serotonin they need from everyday life. So
complete lack of serotonin and a complete dump of dopamine.
Yes. So I think everyone in this movie, and there's a big cast in this movie. I do not remember there being this many people in this movie from when I was a kid watching it. Philip Seymour Hoffman is in this, and a whole bunch of other character actors that I don't know their names, but I definitely recognize them.
The guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yes. Yep. He's in this. What is his name? Alan Ruck or something? Is that his name?
No, you're thinking of Alan Rickman.
No, Alan Ruck. Not in this. That's his name, Alan Ruck.
Oh.
And then also Joey Slotnick and Jeremy Davies, who is the time traveler from Lost. Patrick Fischler, Ben Webler. Like, there's all these people that you would recognize just by their name. And Jamie Gertz is also somebody that we recognize from... what was she in? The Lost Boys, 16 Candles. I recognize her the most from Still Standing because I love shitty sitcoms, and she was the wife on Still Standing. And, it's just Philip Seymour Hoffman, Alan Ruck, and it's just a whole bunch of like character actors that you don't really know their name, but you recognize them from all these different places. But there's a fucking huge cast in this, which I did not remember, but all of them are kind of insane people. And I guess you have to be in order to chase fucking storms like this.
I was going to say, I feel like you can kind of explain why so many of them are insane. The one I just can't let go is Helen Hunt's character.
Well, yeah, she's like the leader and leads them all into fucking chaos over and over again.
Right. She's like a really psychotic William Wallace.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
Well, I mean, for me, this is a fun movie, I guess. In retrospect, it's not nearly as fun as I remember it being. But like you said, the last time I watched this, I was probably 9 or 10 years old. So, I don't have a lot of adult relationship with this movie. So, I
remember this movie being like this movie when I was a kid had a pretty profound effect on me.
I definitely remember it being scary.
Well, no, I mean, like this movie, like really for a short period of time was one of those movies where like you see something about a subject matter and it gets you interested in that subject matter. And this was one of those movies when it came out, like I got really like I got into like weather disasters. Like I remember watching this, and this is back in the day when you could go get movies or you could go like find like short movies about like earthquakes and natural disasters and tornadoes and hurricanes and stuff like that. And I remember watching this and then going and actually like renting or watching movies about like different natural disasters that happen. And after watching it now, I think I just went to bed.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel really tame by today's standards.
Well, it's not just tame. I think a big part of it is the CGI didn't hold up.
No.
I
no,
do
it
feel
doesn't. There's trees and cars and satellites and all this shit that just looks cartoonish.
But I can also excuse that, though, because of just the like insane advancement in CGI technology that we have now.
That's true. There's also a lot of practical stuff in here, like when they're moving trucks and stuff like that. You can tell a lot of this stuff was actually done on site. So it's a mixture of both. And this was 1996. It's sort of the birth of putting CGI into movies. This was still a very, very early movie as far as that goes. So it is easier to look past it. What's not easy to look past, however, is the just sheer lack of depth. I think that's the biggest problem this movie has, is that it's just, they try so hard to make this a character-driven story and make you care about Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt's relationship. And then poor what's-her-face, Jamie Gertz, she's just dragged along the entire movie pretty much by her soon-to-be husband. And it's just
I just want to help people fuck better.
Yeah, she's a therapist and she just wants to help her
a sex therapist.
A sex therapist, yes. And she just wants to help people, and she's being dragged along and doesn't have the self-realization that, you know, this guy, she realizes it, I guess, because she does say, I hope this isn't a ploy to make him fall back in love with you. But she just doesn't have enough self-realization to know to walk away earlier than she actually does, which really bothered me a lot because you're supposed to be a fucking therapist here. Sex therapist or not, you still need to have enough forethought to look inward, to be like, oh, hey, when he puts me in a truck with fatso crazy person that listens to metal while chasing twisters, and he gets in the truck with his ex-wife to go chase, you know, tornadoes, like maybe there is something going on here that I should look inwards to see if, you know. Well,
and I think that leads us to another major hole in the corkboard that I was talking about, which was there are so many conversations overheard over the radio where nobody's holding the button on the transmitter.
Yeah. Well, they all have headphones on, like those headsets, like that.
But there's several times where we were watching this with our friend Jonah, who's been on the show before.
Yeah.
And he made a really, really good point where, like, when they're having that really like emotional moment, Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, and he's like, you don't even see what's in front of you. And it's happening 30 feet from a tornado. And it's clear as day.
Yeah.
And that it's moments like those where it's like they just kind of skipped over it. But again, I feel like you can let that go because this isn't that movie.
Well, like I said, I mean, they try so hard to shoehorn in character development and have this be a really character-driven story.
Right.
And all of the characters are just deep as a puddle, so I just don't give a shit about any of them.
Well, I feel like maybe a tornado chaser isn't somebody that's doing what they wanted for a life dream. I feel like that's
the only reason you would chase tornadoes, though.
Actually, yeah, okay, yeah, that's actually a fair point. That's a fair point. I do want to lead this into, before we close everything out, I want to lead this into why we decided to do this episode, which is what we said before. We're doing this because they're getting ready to come out with Twisters this year.
Yes, in July, I think mid-July.
I cannot think of a movie less deserving of a reboot or a revamp, simply because it's a movie about fucking tornadoes. And we say this all the time. So many movies are made because there's a huge fan base, and they reboot them because of the huge fan base, or because it's a subject matter that deserves rebooting because of the certain circumstances we're in. You could make a movie about tornadoes unrelated to this movie completely and still have a movie that's completely the same. And I don't understand why it has to be a reboot. Like, just make a new Storm Chasers movie.
That's what's funny. We both went into this original Twister movie thinking Twisters was going to be a sequel until I looked it up on IMDb, and it literally says an update to the 1996 film Twister on IMDb.
Which reads like a director's cut to me, by the way.
And here's the thing is the fucking cover even looks similar. Like I just don't understand why.
The font's the same.
Yes. It's literally the exact same. Yeah.
Right. So
I don't understand why we need this. Already exists. What the fuck could you possibly do to this movie to make it more up to date other than give them better technology? Which in the long run, if we're going for story driven again, which I would imagine we are, because how in the fuck are you going to make another movie about weather and make it appealing? What are you going to add to this that wasn't done in this?
Well, as we can see, the way you do it properly is you inject zombies into it.
Okay, I mean that's fair.
Or
Remember
sharks. Zombie tornado?
Yep, or sharks.
Or what? Or sharks. Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. But that
is a good way to make it appealing.
My point is, whatever Twisters is, I don't know anything about it, but I know this: you could have done it without relating it to the original.
I mean, I think this is a book first, isn't it? It's a Michael Crichton book. Is that right?
Probably. I mean, he was part of it. I would assume, so I'm going to assume yes.
I'm going to look this up.
I need to go. This is one of those ones I want to read because even I'm sitting here going like, okay, what was the what was the initiating factor there? Because like with Congo, you have a lot of like character driven parts of the story that make sense. With this, it's my dad died. I got to stop tornadoes. And I can't get over what a lackluster element that is to this movie.
So here's something funny. This is for sale on Amazon from Goodwill. It's a Twister book from 1996 being sold by Goodwill for $46.
Fuck Goodwill.
Yeah.
Fuck all those companies that are like, we're helping out. We give money to this. We give money to that. Yeah, but dude, like the whole, I'm not going to get off on that tangent. I'm not going to get off on the tangent of stores that take in stuff for free and then sell it for $10 or more.
My girlfriend saw a dirty mountain bike at Goodwill the other day for $245. So anyway, yes, this is based off of a book, so maybe it'll follow, even though IMDb says an update to the 1996 film Twister. I think maybe this might follow the book a little bit more on this update / whatever. So maybe that's where it's going. And we just don't know it because neither one of us has read the fucking book. So maybe that's the case, but I just don't understand, like, granted, it's been almost 30 years since this movie came out. So to be fair, exactly. It hurts the soul a little bit. But to be fair, when they were remaking, when we were kids, when they were remaking 30-year-old movies, that didn't feel like that big of a deal because we weren't old enough to remember 30 years prior. Right. I think this just hurts our souls a little bit because we remember 30 years ago. God.
Right.
Ugh.
Well, I wouldn't say I remember it, but that's my fault for life choices.
Yeah. So, okay. Why don't you give me your final thoughts on Twister, and then we will move into a little bit of spoiler stuff, even though this is a 30-year-old movie, and then we will give final ratings. So is this worth watching 30 years later?
It's worth watching, but you could clean the house while you do it. Yeah, you could clean the house, get some dishes done, maybe, play with the dog or the cat or the boa constrictor or whatever you have in your house. Doesn't really matter. You could tune in and out of this and it's going to be the same movie. You're going to miss like the deeper elements of it, but none of those really matter. Watch the beginning.
I definitely
pay attention.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Pay
attention to the beginning. Pay attention to, daddy getting sucked off by a big vacuum cleaner. And, which That might have actually been a more interesting opener. But, pay attention to the beginning to understand why Helen Hunt does what she does, why she's crazy the way she is. Maybe, I would even say maybe pay attention to 15 minutes into so you can figure out that Bill Paxton is the problem in their relationship. And then after that, it's just, like I said, fold some socks, dust some shit, and then, look back every now and then.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That might be the only way to watch and enjoy this movie is while doing something else. I agree. If you watch
it's the only way you're going to feel productive.
If you watch the first 20 minutes of this or so, you will understand the basic premise, and then they just chase 4 tornadoes 4 separate times and kind of try to do the same thing 4 different times throughout the rest of the movie. So if you are gonna watch this and do something else, that's definitely a thing. Even though the second scene of Bill Paxton showing up and say, "Hey, sign these papers," that scene seemingly goes on for 40 goddamn minutes, and it just never stops with the exposition and the character background and all of it. They just won't shut the fuck up and move on with it. And it's the reason this fucking movie is almost 2 hours long. It's very annoying.
There's that whole scene of him trying to get the papers signed. The whole time I'm like, I'm feeling with Bill Paxton because he's like, just sign the papers. And the whole time I'm just sitting there going like, yeah, just sign the damn thing. She's so clearly trying to avoid it. And so it's like, he's clearly got some emotional shit going on. She's clearly got some commitment shit going on.
Well, I mean, as he said, Bill Paxton is definitely the problem in this situation, but that doesn't mean
they're both the problem.
Helen Hunt's character is not an insane person. She's clearly got some leftover baggage from when her dad was sucked off, and so. She never really got past it, if we're being honest.
She's that partner that passive aggressively changes her attention to other events while consciously knowing what she should be doing.
Yes.
And it's one of the most infuriating character flaws in a person.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to start getting into spoilers here. So if you want to watch this, I would suggest maybe watching this before you go into Twisters. But do not expect this to hold up nearly as well as it did in the 90s. This is a very dated film, both in execution, acting, and camera work, frankly. The technical side of this is nothing stood out to me. It's just sort of a big budget popcorn movie with nothing.
So you weren't a fan of the 30-mile-an-hour car chases?
No, I wasn't. And that's the thing is there's all sorts of stuff in here like this where you're just like, oh, it really is almost like watching a movie from the 60s when we were kids. Like that's really what this felt like.
How do we make a Ford Windstar look cool?
Where you just watch it and you're like, oh, I see what you guys are doing to try to make this look cool and high speed and stuff like that, but it just isn't working. 30 years is a long time as far as movie technology goes. And there's a lot of stuff in here that just doesn't fucking hold up. And there's a reason that it is not talked about all that much. But at the same time, this is all of those things are why I don't understand why we need an update to this, because what you're going to do to it is not going to be that. Look at the fucking screenshot on this new one, for God's sake. Like,
you're saying there's a problem.
I'm just saying there's nothing that you can do in this new one that I feel like the 1996 version didn't try. Even if you add new technology to it, the story itself is just not that appealing. And maybe they double
Twisters, down. The thinking man's tornado.
Maybe they double down on the character-driven shit on this new one. I don't know. And again, we haven't read the book, but all of it just seems kind of pointless to me.
Do you think it's like really, really emotionally story-driven, where it's like some sharecropper loses his ass when a tornado comes through? And he has to like contract out tornado chasers to go after that tornado.
I need you to go stop this tornado from hitting my granny's house. But
it took away my home. It took away my farm. My dog's over there.
My wife got sucked off.
And I don't know how, because Tabitha has just been a train wreck for years. It ruined my life. And so now I need y'all to go out and find this tornado.
Well, with all that being said, let's get into the slight amount of spoilers that we can even talk about in this movie.
I think it might just be help in this context.
Yeah. So the biggest issue I have with this is the idea that Dorothy, this technology that they've been working on, is too light. They say that multiple times, and I don't understand how that would be a problem when we're talking about wind. Maybe I don't understand Twister shit at all.
Okay, so when we were watching this, you brought that up. And at the time, I was like, yeah, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And then I started thinking about that because it's brought up a couple times.
Yeah,
and it becomes
times,
like a major like thing. Like we have to figure this out to make this work properly. I think the problem is, and now that I'm saying this, my brain is also in the background processing what I'm about to say and going, that might not actually make sense. The problem, though, I think, is that if Dorothy's too light,
Its name's Dorothy.
She will get knocked over before the top opens up and they can all fly up. But if the balls are so light, then they're still going to get sucked up into it.
Exactly my thought.
It also might not work within the system. Like it might have to work within a system. That to me is simultaneously something that simultaneously could make sense, but also would have been like top of the drawing board issue that you cover before you're ever in this situation. Because if that's the problem, then just put cinder blocks on the base or make it heavier or maybe think of a delivery system where you don't have to physically lift this motherfucker out of the truck
or drive it 13 feet in front of said Twister. Yeah.
Right. Like maybe you put it on a trailer where you just undo the latch and drive the fuck off.
Yeah.
That seems to make sense to me.
This thing we're talking about here is the only thing I'm interested in Twisters, what they're going to do with that, because weather technology and drones and all this other shit has come so far since 1996. There's so many ways that you could play off of this now. Yeah. That's the only thing that interests me in this new one.
Well, I, again, can't figure out why.
Well, I mean...
Like, I can't... Like all the whys, like why A, why B, why C, why D, those are all whys that I can't figure out, that I can't wrap my fucking head around. Like, what are they going to do? Like, granted, we probably could have watched the trailer before going into this episode. Should we watch the trailer?
We can watch it right now. Okay, so I let's just watch it, because I feel like this is the only way we're going to kind of understand where this new one's coming from. So
yeah, and to develop a proper opinion.
Yeah, so I'm just going to hit play on this Twisters trailer in 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, that's very loud.
Guys, whatever's in there, it's big and it's moving fast.
There's no audio online now. I'm getting... There we go.
Guys, you gotta get out of here.
Looks exactly the way I thought it would. All gray and green.
The effects look really good. This could just be like a popcorn blockbuster movie.
I mean, it is a summer blockbuster.
Calls himself a tornado wrangler. If you feel it.
Oh, good. So we're doing this again. We're doing the rivalry thing again.
Well, I mean, it is based on the book, so...
That's right. I keep forgetting that. Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
I would imagine that's in the book.
Oh, she's perfect.
You thought you could destroy a tornado.
We figured this out last night, but the main actress was born 2 years after this first movie was made.
So they're gonna do the same technology, but we're gonna put it in present day?
That does seem weird.
You're right.
Do you think it's set in the 90s?
That's possible. That might, yeah. No, because that's
No,
a new
that's a
Dodge
new
Ram.
truck. That's a GoPro.
We got twins! Twins!
Wow, he's got a shitty little $12 Best Buy light on his camera. Again, people being way too close to doors as a fucking tornado is going on.
Nope.
In July. Okay, well, I mean, that didn't really tell us much, to be fair.
No, I think it told us enough to kind of go along with what we're saying, though, where it's not going to really, this is not going to add anything new. I think this is literally just an update.
Yeah.
Like, this is just an update of what we've already gotten. Now, I'm going to say this. This is one of those movies where I can go into this knowing what I'm getting into and still have fun with it. Because we're not getting just a succession of these ad nauseum. And summer blockbusters are historically, there's not a lot of substance to them. It's just about going and seeing a movie and having a good time. And, we talk a lot about how this movie needs to have this. This movie doesn't have substance. Like, there's not there's not a lot of essential elements to the movie to make it like a good movie. This, I think, in of itself, like just the premise, the entire premise of this movie is something where this is all about big bangs. This is all about getting sucked off as hard as you can just suck off. And so I think this is something that, I mean, I think I could have fun with this movie going into it with the right mentality. And that's what I think is important with something like this, is going into it with the right mentality.
I agree with that. And you're also way more willing to accept, and I don't mean this as a dig, it's just kind of the facts. You're way more willing to accept sort of mindless popcorn blockbusters than I am.
Yes.
So I think I'm just going to be way more resistant when I go into this, even though I've been trying really hard the last year or so to go into movies not feeling that way. This is one movie from my childhood that I do remember very vividly and enjoying it when I was a kid, and rewatching it last night was a kind of an eye opener of like, oh, right. I was a child and I didn't have the know-how to realize that this was kind of a shitty movie. But this new one, you're right. I mean, it does look like it's just about being a big spectacle, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And if it's not trying to portray anything deeper than that, then I'm okay with it. The problem with this original one is that it tries to be so character driven and make you care about these characters so much, but none of them have any real personality other than I chase tornadoes for a living, that I just don't give a shit about any of them. And that is something that if you're going to make me care about these people in the new one, they're going to have to figure out a way to make them deeper and to give me a reason to care about them. That's the big thing that I'm worried about.
I think this is not,
but it may just not be that kind of movie, you know? Like, I don't know.
And that's the thing. I think this is a lot like Godzilla and King Kong, where you're going into any of them. You're going into them for the spectacle. You're going into them for the effects, for
to see people get sucked off. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. To see people get sucked off while surrounded by another group of people coming for the same thing. Coming for the same.
I'm so glad you repeated that. I didn't get it the first time. All right.
I'm glad. Well, I had to really drive that home. But that's the thing is, if they really go into this with the mentality of this is an action blockbuster, people are going to watch this the same way they tailgate at NASCAR races. I think we might have something here. But if they're gonna go into this with the way NASCAR fans go into NASCAR, then I think maybe we might have a problem because nobody fucking cares.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Do you have anything else you want to get into spoiler-wise, or should we just get into our final thoughts and ratings on Twister from 96?
I don't think there's anything to spoil,
There's
man.
just not, right? And
There's nothing to spoil.
In general, there's not a lot of depth to talk about. I was shocked at how shallow this movie was. I didn't remember it being like that, but I hadn't seen it in 20 plus years. So,
I know. You know what I do? There is one thing. There's one thing that really stood out to me when they're at Maggie's and they're all having dinner or lunch, and Bill, I can't remember her name. Melissa. When Melissa brings up F5s and they all just look at her like.
Yeah,
like they're like it's this big fucking deal. But it's not a big deal because an F5 is such an insane level of tornado. It's because she goes, have any of you seen an F5? And they're all talking about it in relation. It goes back to this whole character-driven thing they're trying to do with Helen Hunt. And it's the wrong reason to react that way, because it's like you don't bring up F5 tornadoes. You're gonna tell me that at no point has anybody come across an F5 and it be this like this thing of like of excitement because it's an F5. So every time an F5 happens, it's a traumatic experience. And that actually ties into another issue I had, where when they're under that bridge, because after the brakes give out, she's like, I gotta see it. I gotta see it. You've been chasing these since childhood and you just forgot what they look like, apparently. They look like dust and clouds going in a circle. I know what they look like. You know what they look like. I would imagine a fucking toddler knows what they look like. And you're going to sit here going, I gotta see it. I gotta see it. Like, maybe my dad's in that one.
It does come off multiple times that she's like, it's very Contact-ish, where she's just like, I can see my dad in the tornado. That's how it feels. She doesn't ever say that, obviously, but it does feel like she's trying to reconnect with her father through chasing these things. And even though her dad didn't have anything to do with tornadoes other than being sucked off by one.
Right.
So it's a very stupid reason to get into this whole thing.
She reacts with the same level of stupor for every tornado the way Nicolas Cage reacts to every clue in National Treasure. Like, just with this level of amazement, this level of like, I gotta see it, I gotta find it. Like, sweetheart, it looks the same as the last one,
which is
just
why,
a little bit different. But it's
also
in size.
that exact thing is also why this movie is so fucking dull. And the back half of it is because it's just. Sure, it's in theory 4 different tornadoes because they say at the beginning it's one right after another that's coming. But it all just looks the same and feels the same. And they do the same thing 3 or 4 different times. And it's just why the back half of this movie is just boring as all fuck, because we've ruined any tension that we would have had. Feeling like we're in a tornado has already happened twice at the beginning of this movie. So the other 3 or 4 times at the back half of this movie that we're dealing with a tornado, it just doesn't have any tension because we've already dealt with the exact thing that they're dealing with 2 times before they start trying to make us feel tension in the back half of this. So it's just, it's just this dull bore fest on the back half of this movie. And I don't remember it being like this. And I don't understand why this was such a big movie in the 90s. I don't get it. Looking back, this is such a dull
Probably because of the graphics, man.
I
Probably
guess.
I think a lot of it was a CGI technology.
Yeah.
It was the scope of the CGI technology.
Right.
And a big part of it was the cast and the timing of the release, I think.
Yeah. Well, I will also call you a bit of a liar here because Prime Video says it's for $4 on Prime here on IMDb.
When I looked it up, when I looked it up on Google
$4.
last night.
It's to buy it is $15.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
So
I don't have a rebuttal.
Christmas Twister. Oh my God. Remember that movie?
I do remember
Holy
Christmas
shit.
Twister.
We recorded
do.
a watch along with that and we never released it because the movie was so fucking horrendous.
That was the one where the Twisters have a brain.
Yes. Yeah. But all right. Well, why don't you give me your final thoughts and your rating on Twister from 1996?
Twister from 1996 is a bland action movie that I can see why at the time when it came out, it was super exciting, but does not hold up. It does not hold up at all. This is one of those ones that I think we're going to, it's really difficult. I want to rate it within the context of when it was made, but I can't because that's not how that works. You have to rate it within the context of now. Overall, I think it's not one that I'll be like revisiting. There's nostalgia applied to it for me, so I might rewatch it for that purpose. Probably won't go out of my way to buy it. Now that I see how little the CGI holds up, I don't think I'd even buy it in a 4K re-release.
Come on. If you found it at Goodwill for $3, you'd buy it.
If I found it at Goodwill for $3, I'd pocket it and walk out the door.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I'd steal it. Steal everything. Everybody should be stealing everything
Especially
anyway.
from Goodwill.
Yeah, especially from Goodwill. Just steal from Goodwill because you will get it for the same price that they paid for it.
That's
But
true.
It's a fun movie, but it's again when we say it's a fun movie, that always means the only reason to watch it is to kind of tune in and out at your leisure. And I think that this is a prime example of that. You're going to tune in and out. This movie, I've very seldom seen a movie that has sound cues. When the sounds get real loud and bangy and boomy, that's when you tune in. When everything kind of dies down as far as the intensity of the sound, you can check out if you want to. Overall, I would give, I'm going to give Twister a 6 out of 10. It's above average. It was way above average for its time. But as far as watching it now and revisiting it, I think it's a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, this is just sort of mindless background movie type shit. It just doesn't have that much redeeming value now, which may be why they're remaking it, because maybe based on that trailer, I don't think so, but maybe you can change that up now. I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, but when we go back and watch it, there's just not a lot of redeeming anything in it. So it's very shallow, it's very dull and long and drawn out and frankly kind of boring. It's a lot of monotony, and it just doesn't feel, looking back at it, it just doesn't feel very stellar, or it just doesn't stand out all that much from the 90s. There's so many good 90s movies, but what you were saying is it's hard to look at this movie through the window of when it was released. I think we were better at doing that at movies that we weren't either born yet or way too young to remember. And it's easier to look at like early 80s, 60s, 70s movies like that. I think because we were actively watching movies in the 90s, it's harder for us to look at movies like this through the window of when they were released and not through the window of nostalgia. So it's a lot easier for me to kind of shit on this movie now because of what I remember it being versus what it actually is. So for me, this is not good. It's not good. I think 6 out of 10 is way too fucking high, in my opinion. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. It's dull. Oof. It's shitty. I did not enjoy watching it, really. I think
you don't say.
The fact that I own it this is going to be the one and only time that I watch this Blu-ray, I think. Maybe 15 years from now, I'll pull it off the shelf and be like, I'll give that another try.
Throws it in the trash.
Yes, exactly. But for me, this just didn't work on like any level. Like the camera work's it doesn't stand out. The lighting is not that great because it's just a bunch of dull gray skies with swirling winds around them. The dialogue is kind of shitty. The acting isn't that good. Bill Paxton was not a good actor. I'm sorry, but especially in this, he just does not do a very good job. The way he delivers lines is the way that if you made a Cabbage Patch doll talk, I feel like that's how they would deliver lines in a movie. It's just very like, I know how to read and I am saying words out loud.
It's just a Muppet brought to life.
Yes. And Helen Hunt, there's just so little depth to her character that I just fucking hated her in this movie. And she's just so hateable. She's such a bitch. I don't understand why she's so hateful.
She does seem to be incapable.
As someone who also lost a parent way too young, get the fuck over it. Like, holy fuck. Like, oh my God. And she was way younger than I was when I lost mine. So like, holy shit. Like you're almost 40. Deal with it emotionally. Come on. Fuck.
I'm not touching that one.
But anyway, I just didn't like this nearly as much as I thought I would revisiting it all these years later. This is something that I have had on my watch list to like rewatch this movie. And now having done that, God, I hope the new one's better. So yeah, 4 out of 10 for me. I rated this a 5 out of 10 last night, but as we were talking about it, I realized how much I actually did not enjoy this and how much I was kind of gritting my teeth to get through 2 goddamn hours of this. It is
definitely too long. It is
too
definitely
fucking
too
long. So if you liked this, make sure you hit the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Let us know what you thought about this movie down in the comments, because there's got to be somebody that enjoys this and not through the lens of nostalgia. There has to be somebody out there like that, right? I just don't know who you are. So please let us know what
fans.
This is very Marvel-ish. Yes. It's
Marvel
it's a very like mindless, dumb popcorn, turn off your brain, do laundry type shit. So yes.
And before we close out, I do want to say the next episode, because you're going on vacation, the next episode will probably be a solo review. So if you would like to put down in the comments a movie you would like to watch me review solo, then put it in the comments and I will consider them.
So thank you for all the recent subscribers. The multiple trailer reviews or reactions that we've been doing lately have been doing really well. Thank you guys for that. We really super appreciate it. And yeah, we'll be back with another podcast as soon as humanly possible. This one was a little bit late because we've both been just crazy fucking busy the last week. So this is one of those podcasts we try to get out once a week, but sometimes things get in the way, like life. So we will be back at this within the next week and a half. I am sure if you're only watching this on YouTube, make sure you go check us out on the audio side of things on your favorite podcast listening app, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever else. And then if you're only listening to us, make sure you go check out the podcast on our YouTube page, because there are other things on that YouTube page that are not podcasts, such as solo reviews. We do movie watch-alongs. We do trailer reactions. There's a whole bunch of content on the YouTube page that the audio side of things does not get. So everybody go check out the other thing that you're not listening/watching on, and we will see you guys next time for On the Deep. Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.